You know, we can't really go to our local cinemas to watch movies as freely as we once could because, you know, COVID. So it's a really awesome thing that WB movies are now available to stream on HBO Max on the very same day that they premiere in theaters, which has never happened before. That said, movies available to stream on HBO Max are typically available in 1080p with a 5.1 channel surround sound, but I'm happy to say that that's not the case with these specific type of movies. But the question is, does the quality of these movies make for a good experience for those watching on TVs or even projectors with larger screens in their home theaters? Well, today we're going to find out. Stick around. Hey guys, it's the Villaman here, home theater enthusiast and lover of all things tech. And on this channel, we review, demo, and compare the tech that entertains you. And today we want to find out just how good the streaming quality is of the in-theater movies that are available to stream on HBO Max. And to do this, I'll be using a few devices. First up is the Apple TV 4K, because with it, I can get detailed statistics on the video content being streamed, as well as the LG C10 OLED to assess the picture quality on a TV, and the brand new Epson LS300 ultra short throw laser projector to see how it looks on a big 100-inch screen. Now, for those of you wondering just how come HBO can stream movies that are currently in theaters but at the same time only a select few, it's actually because of AT&T. Now, AT&T owns Warner Media, which owns Warner Brothers, which in turn owns HBO. So that gives AT&T some great vertical integration where they own the studios making the movies and the very popular streaming service to distribute said movies. So although they would love for their movies to have big box office premieres in theater, that's not really going to happen in the current scenario. So instead of just sitting on these movies until people can start going back to theaters in droves, they decided to instead release them and supplement the box office ticket sales with new streaming subscribers. So that brings us to where we are now, testing the same day theater premiere movie, which in this case is The Little Things. Now, these same day movies are actually available in 4K Dolby Vision HDR and Dolby Atmos surround sound for those of you who have the equipment to take advantage of it. If your TV doesn't support Dolby Vision HDR specifically, then it will default to HDR10 instead, just like it does with a 4K Blu-ray disc. So that's really good. At least on the surface, movies available to stream use a different codec than that available on a Blu-ray disc, since the data has to be compressed to be streamed. Now, movies on a Blu-ray disc are compressed too, of course. They just use a lossless compression codec, since they have up to 100 gigabytes of space on a Blu-ray disc to play with, while streaming services use a lossy compression codec, since the average download speed in the US is 50 megabits per second, and at that speed it would take about 5 hours to download. That's a lot of buffering. On the Apple TV 4K, HBO Max uses HEVC, or high efficiency video codec, and it reads as QHVC in the video statistics, which is just Apple's specific container. While on the audio side, it uses the AAC format. And just as important as the codec being used is the bitrate of the data being streamed, and this of course will vary depending on the movie and of course your network. But what we have here is an indicator of the minimum speed or network bandwidth required to stream the content, the average speed required to stream the content, and the actual average speed that we're getting, which will determine how the picture looks for us. And in the case of this movie, it has an average bitrate of about 80 megabits per second for video and 770 kilobits per second for audio if you have it hooked up to a Dolby Atmos capable receiver. If it's not hooked up to such a receiver, the audio bitrate is 128 kilobits per second, which is fine for a TV. Now, all this data is all well and good, but it would mean nothing without context. And to get that context, what we'll use is iTunes Movies. Now, iTunes Movies is considered by many as the gold standard in streaming quality, and is where you go to buy movies if you want to stream and don't want to buy the disc version. I actually did a comparison of how the picture picture of the movie streamed on iTunes compares to an actual 4K Blu-ray disc, and another video comparing the audio in that case. And to summarize those videos, the picture was really close with some streaming artifacts, but not enough to be an issue, while the audio did suffer from a noticeable reduction in dynamic range. And the dynamic range is basically how high the highs got and how low the lows went. You can check out the link to those videos in the card up there or in the description. But in this case, using Ready Player One, which is another WB movie that I have in my iTunes library, the codec used was of course the same, but the average video bitrate that I got was 40 megabits per second, while the average bitrate I could expect was 50 megabits and the max I could expect was 25 megabits per second, which was lower across the board, but not by that much. The audio bitrate was the same as HBO Max at 770 kilobits per second. That tells us that the theater premiere movies being streamed on HBO Max has a similar bitrate to those purchased on the iTunes movie store, which is absolutely great since it's the best case scenario. Another movie I tested was Bloodshot from Sony Pictures, which had better statistics across the board, but was generally in the same ballpark. And things like that are to be expected because different movies will have different statistics, even from the same studio, so not to mention from different studios. But that said, it's great to see that they have similar statistics to the movies purchased on iTunes. Now that's the quantitative side. What about the qualitative aspect? You know, how the movie actually looks. Well, during critical watching, keeping an eye out for artifacts such as pixelation in fast-moving scenes, banding in color gradients, or even macro blocking in dark scenes turned up nothing of note. In most instances, on the OLED, the blacks were inky, but on a closer look, I could see some artifacting in the shadows from the compression. It wasn't that bad, and by certainly not a deal breaker, but it was there. And although there were fast scenes, there weren't any scenes I think fast enough to really push the codec to see if there was any real stressing to create any pixelation in the motion. But not seeing pixelation in this particular movie doesn't mean that it won't exist for any future movie, because this movie didn't have any scene I think fast enough to really push the codec to see if it would create any pixelation in really fast moving content. But the colors were great with great contrast, and it looked as good as any movie that I've bought on the iTunes store personally, which is again the best case scenario. I just wish that I could compare these movies with a 4K Blu-ray, but hey, you can't have everything, right? So after all my testing, my conclusion based on the information I've gathered is the same day theater premiere movies streamed on HBO Max looks every bit as good as the 4K HDR content you buy on the iTunes store. That said, the other content on HBO Max is an entirely different story. That's all 1080p with Dolby Digital 5.1 sound at best. And of course, the Apple TV 4K isn't the only platform that HBO Max is available on. It's available on Android, Samsung's Tizen OS, and Roku, but not LG's WebOS. What's up with that? Either way, I think it's a safe bet to say that the quality of the content in question is as high a quality as those platforms permit. I know that's the case for Android at least, because I tested it on the Epson LS300 ultra short throw laser projector that you see behind me, that I'm currently in the process of reviewing since it has Android built in. Let me know in the comments what you think about HBO Max and if you've seen any of the theater premiere movies in it. And also check out the merch store for awesome home theater t-shirts like this to help support the channel so we can bring you more content like this. Don't forget to like the video if you liked it, and of course subscribe for more audio and video content. We do a lot of interesting comparisons here. Thanks for watching, and until next time, this has been your friend and neighborhood Villaman saying be safe and peace.